and welcome back to another episode of JP and the Beanstalk.
We're both here. The energy is phenomenal in the gym. Football's back, Riles.
We are back, baby.
We're
back.
It's early enough and yet late enough in the footballing season to both have hope and to have already been hurt. So thanks for nothing, Iowa. Dang it.
Tough for you.
Great. But I guess we're just getting the hurt out of the way. So we'll go undefeated the rest of the way. YOLO, no doubt, with a bet. Put the money on it now. It's not at all true. That's just what I'm telling myself.
No, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. I hate to break your heart. It's going to be rough.
That's how you need in the modern game a position called the quarterback, and a person in that position who isn't a sweaty bag of butt at throwing the football to his own team.
Again, he had a good first half. Second half,
there's two
was
halves.
suspect.
Again,
yes.
modern football plays two halves. It's wild. It's weird. Someday, maybe I will realize that, but that day was not yesterday, and frankly, won't be later. So, okay.
Tough for you.
It is. But there's so many good things happening in this world. You can't focus on the negatives.
Agreed.
Right?
I agree.
Your Cowboys kick off today against the Browns, so they'll be 1-0. That's great.
Hopefully.
That's what we're gonna shoot for.
I am not scared of Deshaun Watson. So.
No, unless you are a masseuse, you have no reason to fear. So we went there. There we are. Well, it's great to be here. We're thick into the fall season. We're excited to keep rolling here on JP and the Beanstalk. And we knew this was coming in terms of the overall volume or lack thereof of comic book content, but we are still eager to come at you with content of our very own. So this is going to be another jam-packed, fun-filled episode of phenomenal, wonderful, glorious comic book and comic book related topics. So without further ado, I say we just get right the heck into it. Now, on our previous pod, we introduced a new, fresh segment that I thought was absolutely glorious. So major kudos to you. That segment is one thing that you'd change about a comic book character. And it's pretty simple. Just as the name would suggest, we pick two comic book characters. We're going to pick one from the DC side, one from the Marvel side. And we're going to provide to you, dear listener, our opinion on, hey, here's what we would change about that character to make them better. So not just to F with them, not just to mess and cause chaos into the world. No. We are seeking to improve these characters. So today's candidates. On the Marvel side, we have Iron Man. On the DC side, we have the Flash. Let's start on the Marvel side with Iron Man, Tony Stark. Riley, you go first. What would you change? One thing.
So for Iron Man,
yes,
I feel like we get really repetitive with Tony. Mm-hmm. He gets rich, and then all his weapons get stolen, and he loses all his money, and then he gets it all back. And then he loses it all again.
You understand why he takes to the drink. That's a very extreme swing from one end of the pendulum to the other.
Yes. Yep. So my whole thing with Tony, I just want to see them get creative with him. Mm-hmm. I feel like his creativity as of late, like, for instance, there is a couple of armors I can think of that allow him to do different things, right? Yes. You have the superior Iron Man costume or suit or whatever. Yep. And that kind of was adaptable to a bunch of different things. Mm-hmm. And there was also, I believe it is either the Mark 50 or the Mark 80 in the comics. And the whole idea is that was all of his armors rolled into one and it could do a bunch of different things as well. So I would like to see that creativity come into play where when you see his I want to see his armor slowly progress throughout. I feel like we haven't had that lately. I feel like it's always kind of the same red and yellow. Don't get me wrong. It's great. It's a classic look.
It is a good
look. But I would like to see him evolve in that aspect. And I also thought that would make Iron Man more interesting of character is if he was the tinkerer for superheroes. So I would like to see him take his weapon expertise and actually help build the superheroes, essentially. So outfitting Captain America with more tech, or
he could use it.
Hawkeye with more like how cool would it be if he had like a goggle that would allow him to like scope in and see things?
If Tony Stark is the supplier of Hawkeye's arrows, right? That just makes too much sense because there's already tech involved with Hawkeye's arrows. So doesn't it make sense that he would be collaborating with Tony Stark on designs? Like Hawkeye comes to Tony with a concept, Tony provides his own little Stark flavoring, and then bam, you got a quiver full of death.
Right. And I think people have always made that critique of why does Iron Man not just give everybody an Iron Man armor?
Yep.
Why not at least give them tech that helps them increase in their, like, not necessarily turn them into an Iron Man armor,
Sure.
but allow them to, it's pretty much just an enhancement of their abilities already, right? Maybe
Right.
on the, yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. I would like to see Tony
totally
evolve in that. And then imagine if his tech gets, you know, taken over by somebody else in that aspect. Now it doesn't only affect just Tony.
Right.
It affects the entire Avengers.
Right.
Every superhero is affected in it some way or another.
Mhm.
So I would just like to see Tony's involvement. It kind of goes back to last week where I was like, oh, Parker evolving into this tech company, being able to partner with Iron Man or Mr. Fantastic or whoever has that money. So I'd like to see that aspect of Iron Man where we actually see the philanthropist side of him.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I love that take because it is when you pause and you don't take for granted the fact that Tony Stark is the dude in the Iron Man suit. You realize, well, wait a minute. This is an extraordinarily creative person. And so you would think it would get rather dull to take the same basic framework and simply iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate into the 80s and beyond when it comes to versions of the suit. I'm not saying that can't be part of it, right? Like it's the original project in a certain respect, but by no means should that be his only area of interest. And we saw a little bit of that in the Marvel movies, but I think where the Marvel movies actually strayed too far is they went full suit. So Iron Man gives Spider-Man a full suit. And what I like with your idea is, no, not like the full head to toe, like an Iron Man version of a suit for a Captain America or fill in any of the other characters' names, but enhancements. The Tinkerer is such a great example of what that involvement could look like, where it's outfitting and enhancing is probably the key word there. But what a great natural outlet for his creativity as a character. And to your point, it raised the stakes in terms of, hey, if Stark Tech gets compromised like it did in Secret Invasion, now the impact isn't just on Tony, but it carries across all heroes. And so I think there's some natural conflict that comes into play there of, hey, you got to make sure that, yes, the technology, like on the one hand, you're leveraging it, but you're not relying on it to the point that when it disappears, you've got no other counterpunch. And so I think that's absolute money.
Well, and if you think about it, what was the coolest part of Iron Man 3?
Yep.
What is the coolest part? The answer to that question is when he makes the house call and all the suits come in the final fight scene and he's hopping through the different suits as he's taking on Pierce, who sucks. But, I mean, beautiful execution of that. And how awesome would have it been to be able, because, you know, in the first movie up to Avengers, you kind of see him make those mods and increase. Well, Iron Man, or Avengers 2, that Iron Man 3 movie, he's got at least 30 different suits in between all of that that we don't actually get to see. And some of those that you even get a glimpse of, you're like, what made him build that? I want to see that evolution. And, you know, it's the same way with Spider-Man, how he kind of developed different suits for different villains at one point or another. I want to see that, but then him be able to build off of that into the next suit and still incorporate everything that he's put into it.
Yeah, there is no doubt. There is no doubt. That's a great take. All right, I love that. On my side, when it comes to Iron Man, he has forever been a character in the comics where stale is the right word for it. And it's a shame because he's a very colorful character, right? Like his alter ego personality of Tony Stark is about as entertaining as it gets. And so it feels a bit odd that when it comes to the comics that Tony or Iron Man has a hard time, frankly, carrying a compelling, like, individual line. Here's what I think might be missing. Give Tony Stark, give Iron Man a sidekick. And not an adult sidekick, give him a teenage sidekick. Because he's a disaster as a parent. And so it creates wonderful opportunities for conflict and disaster opportunities where Tony creates a problem and now has to, what's that? Fix the problem. And by all means, like, make it a, here's my perfect picture of what a Tony Stark Iron Man sidekick would be. A teenage genius. So someone that at a young age already has the ability in some respects to outsmart Tony, right? Because you know how Tony doesn't like being outsmarted, doesn't think he ever is outsmarted. When you pair him up with a teenage partner that on occasion does outwit him, it would make him furious, so aggravated. I am all for it. I think that would just bring out so much more of what's great about Tony Stark as a character. So colorful, so controversial at times. I think it would be perfect. I mean, it's really similar to why it's great when Batman and Bruce Wayne have sidekicks. Like, it brings out more of them than just in Bruce Wayne and Batman's case, the dark and brooding. It's like it brings out a bit of a more nurturing and caring side, right? And that's fun to see. The opposite of true with Iron Man, like, he's already wildly outgoing, loves being around people. Now it just kind of reins him in a bit from his eccentricities. So that's my take. I'd love to see Iron Man with a sidekick.
I feel like Ironheart could really do that.
Sure.
And it's a shame that, Tony's dead in the MCU, but
right.
I know, like, when she was first introduced, Tony was technically dead as well, but, like, his AI helped her out quite a bit. So, right. And I don't know if she's still a teenager or not, or what age she is, but she was on the Young Avengers. So that would be interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I feel like she as a character as well could use that boost, and I think Iron Man would be the obvious choice there.
Question, like, since we potted most recently, I was rereading some of Matt Fraction's Iron Man run, and it's genuinely fantastic. The problem with Iron Man, and I mentioned Batman as a comparison, there are almost countless worthwhile Batman stories that you can read across multiple authors, different decades even. It's really pretty impressive, and well, it's why Batman is such the world-renowned character that he is. Whereas with Iron Man, like, he relies so much on the characters that he is around in order to have a good comic book story. When it's just Tony Stark, or when it's mostly Tony Stark as Iron Man, he's like a magnet where he needs to have other metals around him that he can pull in and impact, and vice versa, that can impact him. So the more intentionally that you can force him to be around another character, I think would just do absolute wonders for his character in the comics. And again, just like with Batman, it doesn't have to be all the time. Robin's not with Batman always, but it should be at least half the time. I think it would just make for some wildly entertaining comic opportunities. So that's my take.
Agreed.
Iron Man. Okay, moving on to the DC side. Flash. One thing you'd change. I'm gonna go first here.
You should.
Okay, a bit of a two-parter.
Oh boy.
Okay, we're gonna call this 1A and 1B. So I'm fudging here a little bit, but they are very much related. So time travel with the Flash. Okay, bit of a hot take here. It shouldn't be possible.
I agree.
Shouldn't be possible.
I 100% agree.
Yep.
The only thing good that came out of it was Flashpoint.
And even that, like, was
milked.
Yes.
100% milked.
Yes. So, I don't want time travel. Words. I don't want time travel to be possible for the Flash. And so that's the 1A. And the 1B is, let's use time travel, actually, and go back in time and kill whoever came up with the cosmic treadmill idea. Because that's stupid. Let's put a fast person on a really juiced up treadmill And you know what he can do with that? Control time. That is an awful, awful concept. And I did a little digging. So like, who on earth came up with this? A gentleman named Julius Schwartz. So sorry, Julius, but now you're marked. He was an editor of DC Comics. Get this, okay? It's bad enough, not a good idea. He writes himself into the story as himself. Okay, so there is literally a character named Julius Schwartz who tells Barry Allen, hey, you know what you should do? You should make a treadmill in order to control the speed force and go back in time.
The arrogance.
Oh my gosh, right? So transparent. It's just bad. Like every layer of it, bad. Bad idea, bad execution. This is
he wanted to make sure everybody knew it was his idea.
I mean,
he's like, this is a
trying to
knockout.
impress his mom. I don't know, but it was brutal. But to get back to the bulk of this, there's no other, as far as I know, is time travel a thing in comics? Yes, rarely. However, rarely
unless
is it
you're an
used.
X-Men character, then it's used all the time.
Then it's used all the time. But my point is, rarely is it used well or in a hey, that really moved the story along kind of way. It's usually used as comic book duct tape, where it's like, oh well, we're just gonna change that thing that we no longer wish was a thing, or we're gonna bring that character back from the dead somehow with some kind of time travel, or change the result of this story because of time travel. Also, like, what other character in comics uses speed as the foundational element for how to go back in time? Like, it's just a non-starter.
Yeah,
for me. And time travel in general is really froggy, and so you got to be so careful when you use it. But I really wish that with Flash, like, he has so many. Here's the other part of this. Okay, he has so many phenomenal abilities that come with his ability to be a extraordinarily, like, the fastest man alive. Like, the fact that he can vibrate his body and phase through physical objects is absolutely wild, right? So if we could just get away from the time travel piece, it would allow for more time, energy, and emphasis to be on the attributes of the Flash that are actually the most fascinating and worthwhile. Let's just get away from this time travel nonsense.
Well, isn't it also kind of contradicting to Barry as a character to want to go back and change time? Because, like, you look at, like, Injustice is a great example. Batman tells Barry, he's like, you need to go back in time and change it. And he's like, we don't know if this is going to be better or worse if I do that. I'm not doing that.
Right.
He's like, it's got to be better. He's like, I don't think it can be.
Yeah.
So I agree.
I just think there's too much that has, over the course of the character's history, there has been an imbalanced amount of just baggage that has come from all the time travel shenanigans that the Flash and other. So when I say the Flash, I tend to mean Barry Allen, but really Wally West is just as, if not more, significant. Bart Allen, it just gets super messy. And even his adversaries, Dr. Zoom, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, it's just a yucky mess. It's like, let's clean it up. Let's just take the time travel out of this. And I think we would be much, much better off. So that's my take on the Flash. That's the one thing I would change.
For me, my thought process started with the fact that there are too many Flashes. Mm-hmm. There are too many Flashes, just like there are too many Green Lanterns. Mm-hmm. For me, I don't think DC handles legacy characters very well, because they'll introduce another one and then they'll always bring back the original, and then you have they're all floating around and everybody's wondering, well, where's that version? Essentially. Flash is one of the main ones. Yeah. So what I would change, I think Barry and Wally's roles need to change in DC. Yep. I would have preferred Barry to stay dead after his sacrifice. Yep. You do find out later that when he comes back, like, he is like the Speed Force. Like, when he became the Flash, that's when the Speed Force originates. Right. I would have actually liked to see Barry turn into almost like this mentor role for all the other speedsters, but he kind of lives in the Speed Force. Yeah. Like, he's no longer allowed to, like, be a hero because he has to make sure and maintain the Speed Force so that everyone else can use their powers
Mhm.
efficiently, right? Just to see them have those speed moments where they're thinking, and it's pretty much just a one-on-one talk with Barry before they do it, and he's just like,
Yep.
"Are you sure this is what you want to do?"
Yep.
Blah 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 blah. So this voice of reason that just constantly with the Speed Force, and then also like for villains, right? If they're using the Speed Force, he can
Yeah,
also talk
very
to
much
them
so.
as well and be like, "This is a terrible idea. I don't know why you're doing this." So I would like to see
Yeah.
Barry take on that mentor slash guardian role essentially,
Yep.
and then just make Wally your main Flash, because guess what? He had been for 20 years after Barry died.
And I don't think there was a void that needed to be filled where it's like, man, if only we had Barry Allen back. It's like, I don't think there was anybody pining for that.
And everybody loved Wally.
Correct.
Wally was my Flash
Correct.
growing up. I didn't
Yep.
know who Barry Allen was.
Yep.
So to have him become your main Flash again, because I look at a lot of the Teen Titans,
Mm-hmm.
essentially,
Mhm.
right? I like that Dick Grayson became Nightwing. He's his own character. I would honestly like to see him just be a part of the Justice League
Yep.
at some point,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I know he's got the
Okay.
Titans, and the Titans have kind of gotten away from the teen aspect, which is I think much needed at
Sure.
that point.
Sure.
Cyborg also was able to evolve into his own role. It goes with me on like other of those Teen Titan-esque
Yeah.
level of characters where
Yeah.
you need to get to the point where either they're going to take the mantle of the hero that they're behind,
Yeah.
or they need to become something different entirely.
Yeah.
And for Wally, he takes a huge step back,
Yeah.
essentially, and goes back into that. I don't know if he's.
That's
I
what
mean,
but you're absolutely right. There was no void. It wasn't like, oh, Wally West is dying in this story or is gone missing. No, he's still there. And then you're bringing in this unnecessary additional character into the same space. And it's like there's not enough space for them to both like coexist in a meaningful way. There's just not.
and then they also eventually introduced Bart Allen as Impulse,
Exactly.
so he
Yep.
still has like that Kid Flash role essentially too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want him to have that mentor-mentee relationship, it's right there.
Yeah.
And so now you have all of those, and then look up the Flash family. There are so many speedsters, so many, and they all do the same thing. They all do.
Correct.
For the most part. The only difference is Wally is the fastest Flash
And so
by
many
a
of them-
mile and a half.
And so many of them have been impacted again by time travel or created because of time travel.
Oh,
it's just such a joke.
We have two Wally Wests. We have two Wally Wests because the new 52, they're like, okay, we're going to introduce a different
Mhm.
kind of Wally,
Mhm.
which not a bad character overall. They
Sure.
just should have named him something different than
Correct.
Wally.
There's so many other names out there than Wally.
And
Pick one.
especially if you're like, you know what we're going to do for DC Rebirth? We're going to bring back the original Wally West. It doesn't make sense.
No.
I'm sorry. That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Mhm.
You should have just named because you already put that Wally West, the new one,
Yep.
at a disadvantage by calling him Wally West.
Correct.
Keep the last name. That's great. Should have been something different.
There's no doubt.
So that's my thing. I think the Flash family as a whole needs a shakeup on positions and
Right.
and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay with Barry being happy with Iris. That's fine. That's fantastic. But at the same
But not as
time,
an active speedster.
correct. I like that idea of his hands are too full with the Speed Force
Correct.
to where he can't, like, if he were to leave his duties,
Right.
everyone's screwed.
Right. Right.
So that's where I'm at.
Right.
With it.
He has to respect the limitation or the speed force disappears and now you go from multiple speedsters to none of them. Interesting.
And even on top of that, though, too, have the Speed Force have something where if the Speed Force no longer exists,
Mhm.
something happens with
Mhm.
Earth and it tears everything apart.
Sure.
Right? Go. Just make it make sense so he has to
Make
be
it
there.
clear.
Because if he just gives up and is like, everybody, oh, you guys don't need powers, right?
Right.
Like,
No, make it catastrophic where someone has to be in that role. I mean, I think it can be really similar to what we saw in the Loki TV show, right? Where Loki ultimately had to take on the mantle as the god of stories because someone had to be in the He Who Remains or Kang seat. Otherwise, it all crumbles. And so I think without question, there are those types of roles And that would make so much sense if you're wanting to keep Barry Allen around as that legacy character. It's like, there you go. There's his fit. That's where he can be and still chime in every so often.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally agree. Love it. Hey, great work, everyone, on the One Thing You'd Change segment. Look forward to another blast on our next pod. All right, moving forward, couple individual segments here that we're going to start rolling out on a regular basis. We're going to give me a chance to provide my point of view, which you're welcome, or I'm sorry, whichever your point of view is. And we're going to get into another segment called Beans Beefs.
Yeah, somebody wanted me to get angry today.
You know what? Listen, I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
And I struggled with that. There's not.
Okay. It's okay.
But I reached in the
I'm
bag.
glad that you're at peace, but I also don't want you to be at peace.
I found something. I think that'll work.
So for my little spiel here, my point of view, I wanted to talk for a bit here on the Rings of Power show. All right. Season 2 dropped late August. We are now, as of this recording, 4 episodes in. And I'm going to go on a few tangents here. First of all, and most broadly, if you're out there hating on this show, go jump off a bridge, quite frankly, because there's nothing to hate. All right. It's certainly fine if it's not your cup of tea. No problem. That's great. But in particular, when I talk about the hate, I mean for those Neanderthals that are trying to find some kind of woke agenda behind this show. It's not a thing. That's not what's happening here. It's just not. Like, if you're trying to dig that nonsense up, or even worse, you're celebrating the show not being universally well received, how sad are you? That's just weird. We're going to get into this a little bit later in our episode today with Agatha All Along. Listen, that show, for example, is not my cup of tea, but I'm not wishing ill on it. I would rather that it succeeds and succeeds wildly. Okay? So with Rings of Power, part of the reason why I don't understand the disdain, and in fact, I would encourage you to give it a chance, open your heart up. There has clearly been a lot of time and energy and genuine care and affection put towards this show. The design, from people group to people group, so you're talking humans, elves, dwarves, heck, even the orcs, right? Even the bad guys. It looks fantastic, from the costumes to the physical, geographical settings. It's all wonderful. The characters, and this is where we're going to get into, okay, some of the fair negatives here. There's too many characters, all right? But there's also going to be someone for you. And I have my preferences for who I would like to spend time with. But this is not a show that was just living in the brain of some creative person who had a friend who's a producer and they said, you know what? Heck, yeah, we need to make something. Let's just push it out there. This has been made with time and with care. I mean, it's been a couple years since we had season 1, so it's not like we're rushing season 2 into production. There is a genuine level of care that this show has been made with, and I really respect the heck out of that. Now, as we have gotten into season 2, again, we're 4 episodes in. From my point of view, episodes 1 and 2 were really strong. Episodes 3 and 4, struggling a little bit. We got too many characters. We need to winnow down the character arcs. Maybe kill some people off if necessary. But part of what season 1 did that really has made season 2, I think, challenging is it already had multiple character threads, and then it divided these characters up even further. So now we have that many more threads to try and pay attention to, and we're just a little bloated at this point. So we need to winnow down. But I'm optimistic. I still love the way it looks. I love the concept. I don't know how many seasons ultimately, like the overall arc, is going to try and run. I got to believe we're going for at least a couple more here. It doesn't feel like it's in any kind of a hurry, which, by the way, I love. It's taking its sweet time. So there you go. From my point of view, Rings of Power, worth your time, because there are so few shows and movies that have come out recently, as we've lamented, that are made with care. So many rushed microwave jobs, and this is not that. So Rings of Power, there you are. Beans, I would love to hear what you're beefing on. my friend. We love the meats here. What's grinding your gears, causing you angst?
See,
Forcing you to
again,
do
I'm not like
push-ups?
don't hear me like be like super angry, okay? Because I'm not.
Do you want me to help you get there?
No,
Okay,
it's good.
okay, all right.
So I've been juggling ideas here. I just want to talk about comic book marketing in general.
Yeah.
And how bad it is. Here's what I don't understand. When we're in a Marvel movie, how is there no reference to comics, or why don't they run like a trailer for like, hey, here's what's going on in
Sure, ahead of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe having a reference of, hey, this is what this movie's based on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to read, like, I don't understand that non-translation of like, hey, we have these that are very successful.
Correct.
Here's where you can go get more of that character.
Right.
How do we not know what's going on in comics
It's a great question.
currently?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Like, I feel like I have to go look it up.
Mhm.
Like, I follow Marvel on
You've
social
got
media.
to go make the actual effort yourself.
There should be some form of thread from Marvel or DC, right? Of like, hey, here's what you should read to get hyped for this movie. We're super excited that we have Spider-Man coming back.
Right.
He's going to be fighting Kraven.
Right.
For example, here are all the best highlights of those two fighting.
Yeah.
How are you not going back and promoting that stuff?
It's a priceless leveraging opportunity, right? I mean, you go back to the inception of comic book movies here in the early 2000s, and comic book consumption, let's say, was such a niche, right? And so with the comic book properties being turned into feature films, all of a sudden you went from whatever modest number of folks were reading these comics and seeing that character to all of a sudden exponentially more, millions, in the millions. And how the comic book industry has not intentionally and effectively leveraged that, and not saying, and I know this is not what you're saying either, which is, hey, the movies and printed material need to sync up and follow a similar arc. No, of course not at all. But how on earth there can't be during the movie? I love the idea of, hey, a preview, or during the marketing for an upcoming movie, it's, hey, go read these comics ahead of time. Like, if you want to know more about these characters, or maybe even most importantly, after the movie has come out, how is there not a subsequent marketing blast of, hey, if you saw that movie, you enjoyed it, here are the comics that you should read? Because I think that may even be more of where the interest has been piqued, is someone sees the movie and they go, Drax the Destroyer? Never heard of him, but what an entertaining character. That was wild. How are you not finding a way to pump up, hey, well, here's your Guardians of the Galaxy comics, here's Drax in this story that very few people have read, where he freaking rips out the heart of Thanos. It seems like that would be a fun story to read, wouldn't it? That actually happened, by the way. So
yeah,
I totally agree.
And I'll take it even one step further. When you're making those comics, why every movie and every show that ever comes out, there are always action figures. There's always hats, whatever you want to say.
All the merch.
They
merch
release
with a capital M.
Correct. They release all the merchandise in the world. Why aren't you doing that for your comics as well? Like, oh, hey, there's a new Spider-Man costume with this. Here's the action figure. It's going to come out right around the same time as the book, right? Or whatever they do, right, for merchandise. I don't understand why that's not a thing, just to get the image out, because if you have a kid or you collect action figures, for example, and you're taking them through the toy aisle and they see that Spider-Man, where's that Spider-Man showing up?
Want to have, like, within action figure, a card that comes with it that says the version of this character, like the design of this character, inspired or pulled from this comic story. Check it out. And you have a QR code where it's like you scan it on your phone, takes you straight to the DC or the Marvel store, and there you go. There's the graphic novel that design for that action figure has been pulled from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't understand how there's not cross-pollination through all of it. Right? Because, like, Marvel has trading cards, and I'm sure they reference certain comics sometimes, but, like, that should be everything, personally.
Yeah. And listen, I understand that it's easier to, from a consumer's point of view, it's easier to watch a show or a movie than it is to physically read material, which is sad because you need to read. It's good for you in so many ways. So you can, and guess what? You can both grow in your mind and be entertained at the same time. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It happens at the same time constantly if you're reading something that is engaging to you. And listen, there are few more easily accessible works of reading material than comics, okay? Rarely does the dialogue get terribly high-minded, or does the vernacular and does it get to a point where you're going, I've never heard that word before. I don't think I've ever said that once when I've been reading a comic. I've never read that word before. And that's not to disparage them. My point is they're very accessible, kind of like a lot of comic book movies where it's like it appeals to a very wide general audience.
Well, and even on top of all that, I don't see the appeal of a single issue.
Correct.
I'm going to wait every time on a full book.
There is no doubt.
So if you're going to do a single issue, in my opinion, you need to do something different.
Yep.
Right? So if they're, like for example, I think the one that comes to my mind is the iconic Jim Lee X-Men, where it's all 4 pieces and they connect into one big image.
Yep.
That makes sense to me.
Yep.
Right? Or if there's a new character, those are the only times I understand single issues being sold, because everybody goes and buys that because they're hoping that character takes off. So you're buying stock in it.
Right. It's kind of like buying a rookie baseball, or, pick your sports ball card. You're hoping that there is a value with that single issue.
But if you're going to do that, you need to make that single issue worthwhile.
Correct.
That single issue is introducing a character perfect.
Yep.
Put them on the front in some form or aspect, and then have something else with it, and then sell it. Like, I don't understand. Maybe it's a digital copy of the book, or maybe, I don't know. But there needs to be something. There's just a disconnect there that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
From a consumer perspective.
No, I totally agree. And I think it's also, I wonder how much, I feel like maybe too much energy has been pushed towards the digital medium of, hey, read the comic on your tablet. There was a brief but real time where e-readers had their day, okay? Like Barnes & Noble, Amazon pushed those out, and they were actually, like, some ground was gained. But that window of opportunity has closed. Those are no longer as prolific or worthwhile. And similarly, the whole idea of, hey, there's digital accessibility for these comics, I just don't think it's the winning idea. I'm not saying it should go away. Yes, that can be another way that you make your material accessible, but there are few reading experiences as enjoyable and as satisfying as holding the physical graphic novel in your hand and paging through great art after great art. That's pretty unique. Like, you just don't get the same dynamic on a screen.
So we got the DC app.
Yep.
And how much have you read on there?
Very little.
I've been reading through Batman.
Yep.
And what they should be doing is, after you get through like an arc, for instance, as soon as I got through Court of Owls, it should say something like, did you like this? Here's a link to purchase the whatever,
like the special edition,
single issue, hard copy.
Yes.
And there should just be a whole selection of, hey, here's
I own this. I would read this multiple times.
Yeah. Or you want to buy a Court of the Owls mask? Here you go.
Yep.
$20.
Yep.
Or there should just be a whole list of merchandise that falls under either the characters that are involved, or that arc, or those stories. Or it should also link, I mean, they do a great job of just keeping the issues feeding, but like, it should link you to a bunch. Like, they're like, oh, if you like the Court of Owls, and click here to continue where they pick back up, or whatever. Right. So, you have so much IP and so many characters that people love, to the point where I don't know why you're just not boosting this.
Totally agree. Strange.
So that's where I'm at.
Good beef, Beans. Really productive beef from you.
I didn't get super angry.
That's okay. Your passion is still very, very worthwhile. Love it. All right. Hey, moving on from that phenomenal segment. Well done, Beans. Let's dive into, now that we are firmly into the fall, a bit of a fall preview. What are we looking forward to this fall? Now, a little spoilies ahead of times, okay? The fall is not that different in the summer. 2024 is shaping up to be a overall bummer of a year. And again, let's hope that holistically we're looking at a bit of a reset, recharge, whatever you would like, head of what should be a much more banger of a year in 2025. But nonetheless, in these last 3.5 months, we have some things to look forward to. So let's run through them in chronological order, okay? Right out of the gate, obviously we're already in the Rings of Power territory, so I'm not going to retroactively spend a lot of time there, but it's out. Go watch it. Agatha All Along. First episode's release on September 18th. Now, I want to dwell on this for just a little bit here. This is not going to be my cup of tea, all right? Like the horror genre in general, I don't enjoy it, okay? This feels like it's a blend of, there's some horror, there's obviously some comic relief, there's some musical elements. Okay, I can respect all of that from a creativity point of view, from a, hey, this fills someone else's bucket in terms of what they want to enjoy as a consumer. That's great. It's not for me. I'm going to track along with the show because I'm curious to see what comes of it as far as how it impacts the greater and grander MCU. But I really want this show to do well, because I think that part of what can help Marvel in this case and DC in the future, as they hopefully get well established, is when you have other tones and other flavors in your kitchen. Listen, that makes the main course that much more appealing, because instead of being like, steak again, right? It's like, no, you want steak. It's delicious, but it's great to have some variety mixed in there. So if that's what a show like Agatha All Along and hopefully others can provide, I think at times have provided, like Loki was a very different show than what we saw from a lot of the Marvel cinematic universe in terms of the actual feature films. So I would love to see Agatha All Along succeed. I'm pulling for it. I'm rooting for it. Probably won't be actively watching. Where are you at on that one?
I need some character to show up that would pique my interest in that. Yep. So somebody needs to show up in that show to be like, oh, dang.
Right.
So I'm not going to like pull for like somebody like Mephisto per se, where it's like, oh, crazy, like game changer. But like, oh, like Scarlet Witch came back? That's one that would pique my interest.
Yep.
It makes sense.
Doctor Strange is here.
Doctor Strange, another great example.
Yep.
Benedict pops his head in there. Okay, I'll tune in. Only even for an episode. Mordo, right. Another great pull. Right? We don't know what happened to him at all, by the way. We haven't heard anything about him. He would be another great, like, Wong. Maybe. Yeah. No, probably not, though. Don't get me wrong. Wong's cool, but like, I don't need Wong here.
Yep.
But yeah, somebody in that mystical, magical. I will even take Charlize Theron's Clea.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That would be kind of fun.
Teased at the end of Doctor Strange 2. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So those are like, that's where I'm at with it. I need somebody else, because Agatha was not, good villain for WandaVision. Not a good enough villain to have her own show.
Right. That's what it feels like. So hopefully the show finds a way to be successful. I think the cast looks like a lot of fun. Catherine Hahn is obviously tremendous and terrific. So they've got the right raw material in terms of the actors and actresses playing the various characters. Just hope it works out. One day later, don't ask me how that works out, The Penguin releases its first episode or episodes on, well, what used to be HBO Max, now just Max. I am vastly more interested in this show. It's just more of my cup of tea, right? Crime, always fun to watch. That sounds weird saying out loud, but obviously Colin Farrell's version of the Penguin from the Batman film was a highlight of that movie. Now we're introducing the character of Sophia Falcone, who from the comics is just a brutal menace. So a great addition. We're keeping Batman out of it, so we're letting the bad guys and gals have their time to play here. And I'm very intrigued. And I could see it flopping. I could see it being a bummer. I don't think it's going to be, though. I have a lot of confidence and hope in this show being very worthwhile.
I believe in Matt Reeves. So I am going to hold high hopes for this. I think it'll probably be, honestly, looking at this entire list, dear God, this is going to be probably the best thing to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. The Penguin, September 19th. So one day later, we have a double dip here. One for the adults and one for the kids and kids at heart.
The youths.
The youths. Wolves comes out on September 20th, starring Brad Pitt and my guy George Clooney.
I saw that. Apple TV exclusive.
Apple TV, but apparently in theaters on the 20th and then streaming on Apple TV on the 27th. Now,
I hate that they do that.
I don't know if it's a wide release when it comes to the theaters. Like, are we going to see it in good old Ames, Iowa? Don't know. But if you haven't heard of this flick yet, go watch a trailer. And I mean this in the most positive possible way. It's exactly what you would expect. Essentially a buddy comedy with those two as not necessarily hitmen, but cleaners or fixers, I think is the right appropriate term, where they come in and clean up the mess left behind after a crime or a hit. So I think hilarity will ensue. I think it's going to be very entertaining. I'm not saying it's going to be anybody's, that was the best movie I've ever seen. I just think it's going to be a safe, I watched it, I laughed, I enjoyed it. I was glad I spent my time on that one.
I would be willing to watch that. I really like Brad Pitt and Bullet Train, and this seems like it has the same kind of vibe.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Okay.
I think it's called Bullet Train.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And now I like that movie a lot. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your guy from Bullet Train, Jason Tyree Henry, I believe, was in Bullet Train.
Yes.
Remembering that right?
Mm-hmm.
He is going to voice Megatron.
He was so funny in that movie.
He's voicing Megatron in Transformers 1. Chris Hemsworth voicing Optimus Prime. It's an animated feature. It's supposed to be the origin of Optimus Prime and Megatron. Listen, I think it looks entertaining. I'm not anticipating there being a whole lot of like genuine value to draw from this. I like the looks of the animation. I'm intrigued enough. I'm going to go see it.
I'm hitting the skip button.
Okay, that's fine.
Not mine.
Wesley would gladly invite you.
Yeah,
if you ever wanted to open your heart up.
No, I prefer the wise Optimus. Okay, let me be real. I don't care about the origins of the Transformers.
Yep.
The only origin that I would like to see is their final fight on Cybertron and then watching the planet explode. Right. That's the only prequel that I want, and I want it live action. All right? I don't want whatever this is. Okay? It's just look, it's not for me. It's not. And that's okay.
That is okay.
I don't expect an animated movie to be for me. Most animated movies probably
supposed to be.
Correct. Right. They're supposed to be for the youths.
Yep.
All right? Unless it's an anime, which is a different story. But
there you go.
Regardless, this isn't for me.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. Well, continuing to move through the month and actually, a little bit into the month of September, here's a little bit of a different flavor for you. Super/Man. So not a feature film. It's a documentary on the life of Christopher Reeves, the first live action in terms of full-length feature film, Superman. Is that technically true? Well, let's not get into the semantics. At the very least, absolutely beloved for his portrayal of Clark Kent, Superman, in the original Superman, the movie. And I remember actually watching that movie as a kid, not because it came out when I was a kid. I'm not quite that old. But my parents let me watch it when I was of the appropriate age to know what the heck was going on. And the dude absolutely embodies. I mean, he just looks like, that's freaking Clark Kent. That's Superman. He had a terrible accident that left him paralyzed. It was a horse riding accident. And so this documentary covers the story of how he and his family responded to that accident in such a powerful way. And so one of the wonderful things that I pretend to know about Christopher Reeves is that after the accident, he and his family managed to have quite the impact in spite of the severe limitations that he had to endure for the rest of his life. So I would recommend at bare minimum watching the trailer for that documentary because it sure as heck piqued my interest. So I decided to throw that one in there. Superman.
Yeah, I'm out purely based on the fact I know that's going to be a bummer.
It's a documentary.
That's going to be
depressing. It's going to be sad. You want to know how I can enhance your sadness here? So I didn't know this until I watched the trailer, but apparently one of Mr. Reeves' most critical friends in this stage of his life was Robin Williams.
Oh, tough.
Yeah.
Oh, tough.
Right? And so they were obviously going through some tough things together, and well,
that's crazy.
We know how Robin's story sadly ended. So
yeah, and look, don't get me wrong, Christopher Reeves deserves a documentary.
Yep.
Probably more than a good portion of people.
You're not interested in being sad.
God, no.
Right, if you know ahead of time, this is going to make me sad, I'm going to pass.
I know, well, yeah, we know what happens.
Totally get it. Yeah.
We know what happens. Yep. It's terrible.
It's super sobering.
So
there you go.
See, the one documentary I might watch this year, and this is going to be a reverse of a bummer, because this is going to be like, oh, dang. Vince McMahon is getting a documentary on Netflix. Gosh. And look, even if you're not a wrestling fan, they cover the allegations recently. Okay. So I'm super intrigued by that.
I would watch that in a heartbeat too. That's just going to be wildly entertaining.
Because because it even discusses about how the fact that the lines get so blurred between the wrestling character and the actual person. Yeah. So, because he was such an asshole. Like, I'm so excited. So that might be the one documentary I actually watch.
When is that coming out?
Let me look.
Okay. I'll do
Google it.
I'll do it.
I think it's this month, and I want to say it's soon. But there's several parts to the documentary, and they interview like wrestlers, and I don't know if they interview family or not. But it's not made by WWE, so they go all in on this guy.
Right.
So they don't protect him at all.
Right.
Which is, I think, the most important part of this is it's not going to be like, they're not going to sugarcoat anything.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. September 25th, all 6 episodes are going to drop. Yeah, I think it'll be wildly entertaining and informative. Like a train wreck with fireworks, I think is the visual I have in my mind. Because it's not just a disaster; it's also like, wow, that's amazing, and ooh, that's really tough. So,
but that was Vince McMahon.
Yes,
because Vince McMahon's whole philosophy was, what's going to make us the most money? That was his philosophy. He did not care if it was a good thing or a bad thing.
Yep.
He's like, let's do it.
Yeah, very much so. It's a great pull, Riles. Nicely done. Way to drop that one in there. And chronologically, it fits too, so great job. All right, moving into the month of Hoba, we have Venom, The Last Dance, coming in hot on October 25th.
I can't
run for our guy, Tom Hardy.
See, that's the bummer part, but I am so excited for this trilogy to be over.
And here's what I should say. As soon as I said last run for Tom Hardy is Venom, I'm going to call it right now. It will not be. He's going to be back as Venom in a, like, solo, so to speak, film. No, but he is a willing Venom. He's going to be back.
Well, he likes playing Eddie.
It's exactly what I mean.
I've already heard rumors there's some MCU ties to this movie in the third one.
Sure.
So here's what I'm hoping from this movie. It stays away from Null entirely. Mm-hmm. Okay, just stick with the planet invasion. I don't want Null at all. Yep. If Null shows up, I'm leaving. That's where I'm at. Okay, he's too badass of a villain to just show up, and because he does. If he does, it's gonna be corny. Yep. Okay, I don't want that.
Yeah,
it would be Gore the God Butcher on roids.
Yeah,
is what it would be.
Right.
So, honestly, I would love it if they brought Tom Hardy into the MCU and just let him play Venom, but let him be the more serious-esque, like tone him into what Eddie Brock should be. And I think he would be a great Spider-Man adversary.
Sure.
Give him the symbol. Give him the Spidey symbol. So I personally think, because, the rumors are so heavy that Tobey's coming back again to play Spider-Man. We already have Hugh back.
Right.
I think, man, that Venom would be perfect to bring into this, honestly.
I think we're going to get there, personally. At this stage, I think there's just almost no question that we're going to get to a point where our guy Tom is in the MCU.
Just get the tone correct, for the love of God.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
Yep. Good, thanks. All right, moving on into November. This one's a bit of an outside pull, but toss it in there nonetheless. Red 1. So if you're looking for your new favorite Christmas movie, this might not be it. But it might also land on your top 5 or top 10. You never know. So we've got J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus. And by Santa Claus, I mean, yes, Santa Claus, but also apparently he is super jacked and lifts extraordinary amounts of weight, which, considering his right-hand man is Wayne Johnson, I think is meant to intentionally be a poke or have some fun with that. And Dwayne Johnson loses Santa Claus, and so then he calls in Chris Evans' character, who, according to the synopsis, is the world's most infamous bounty hunter in an effort to save Santa Claus and therefore save Christmas. So, ridiculous, yes. Potentially hilarious, also true. So, I'm interested in seeing that one. It could be really freaking funny. It could, here's what it'll either be. It'll either be worthwhile and funny or a complete flaming bag of poop. There will be no middle ground.
No.
So there you go. Any thoughts on that one, Riles?
No.
Okay.
I don't go out of my way to watch those random Christmas movies.
Yeah. Speaking of there will be extremes, hello, Gladiator 2. The sequel that all of us were not asking for is happening. So Ridley Scott loves him some Ridley Scott, and therefore we're getting Gladiator freaking 2. No, there's no Russell Crowe. It is coming out on November 22nd. But yes, there is Pedro Pascal. Yes, there is Denzel Washington. So I don't know what else to say other than exactly what I said already for Red 1. It'll either be really entertaining and enjoyable or a complete bag of flaming turd burgers.
I've never seen the first one, so I can't.
Have you not?
No.
Wow.
So I can't tell you. I'm going to go see the second one.
Let me take this opportunity to say the first one is one of the best movies you'll ever watch.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
It's
I've heard good things.
Incredible. It has aged very well.
I would probably like that movie too, because I like the Romans and the Greeks.
Oh. Everything you're saying is yes, you need to watch this movie.
Okay.
So watch Gladiator 1. So there you go. There's our relatively brief fall preview. There's a ton of horror thriller type movies coming out. Again, it's not my cup of tea. I just don't enjoy being scared in general. Especially if I'm watching a movie. Again, no, that's not why I'm watching the movie. I don't want to be scared. So for those of you that do love that genre, good on you. This is your year, man. 2024 is the year of being scared. You got it. Go get some. For the rest of us, kind of looking forward to turning the page on ye old calendar into 2025.
Amen to that, sir.
Speaking of fives, before we get into our top 5, one little bit of casting news. So not a lot of news in this last 2-week cycle to recap, but a prominent enough rumor that I thought we would bring it to the table, and that is that Josh Brolin has apparently, again, rumor, but strong enough that it's made the circuit, has apparently been offered the role of, you guessed it, Hal Jordan in the fledgling DC movie universe. I think the one positive thing I can say about this, and it is a stretch, is that he is an age-appropriate buddy for Nathan Fillion.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Who is already cast as Guy Gardner. That's all I got.
I don't understand it.
Neither do I.
Why?
Neither do I.
And I feel like they're going for the younger route for John. Is what it sounds like. Because I've heard, this is rumors, of course, I've heard they're going for the grumpy old man for Hal. And they're going for the young, reckless in John, which is the complete opposites. It should be the other way around.
Help me understand this one, right? Okay, so James Gunn, new to the DC scene, give him an opportunity to fresh slate. Okay, do his own thing. Jimmy, blank check, go for it, buddy. All right. So I am going to, as my new thing, I'm Jim. I'm going to do exactly what Batman v Superman did, which is say, I'm going to pull in this character that's not yet in this particular movie universe, Batman. But instead of it being a young version, he's going to have been around for decades. He's going to have seen some things, but you know what? We won't have seen them with him, and that's going to be awesome. What?
You want to know the worst part is? Glenn Powell's right there.
He's Hal Jordan. I said that on our last pod.
Glenn Powell is absolutely right there.
The embodiment.
He is the best casting choice for Hal Jordan.
It's not effing close.
No, he's coming right into his prime. This is a perfect time to have him in a superhero movie.
You're like, man, how do we get people to go to DC movies?
Glenn Powell.
Roland Powell. Sorry, Josh. Stay purple, brother. You were a great Thanos. And listen, Josh Brolin's a great actor. He has his own, he's built up his own name recognition, so on and so forth. Great. He was phenomenal as Cable in Deadpool.
He's a great Cable.
Fit.
That's perfect for him.
Cable.
Thanos, fantastic.
He is not Hal Jordan. I couldn't be more discouraged and will not be more discouraged if this rumor turns into truth. It's one thing to have Guy Gardner, who is a always and forever C-list at best character on the DC side. Is he fine? Sure. Is he entertaining? Yes. Does he matter? Not at all. You could put a bullet through his brain in the first 2 minutes of the movie that he's in, and the movie's not worse off for it. Sorry, that's just Guy Gardner's character. He's just there to be a dick.
And get punched in the face.
And get punched. But Hal Jordan, this is a legacy character. This is a critical freaking character. So what in the flaming flammers are we even doing here? There is not, quite frankly, there is not a positive outcome. Like, oh, we're going to go the parallax route. Nobody wants that.
Especially not right away. It's so depressing of a story.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Hal Jordan gets possessed by an evil parasite, kills a ton of people, and then himself by flying straight into the freaking sun. No, thank you.
I agree.
No, thank you. It's GD Glenn Powell. Give it to me.
No,
it's freaking Glenn.
It's a shoe-in. It's literally a layup, and it doesn't make sense.
I wouldn't be upset. I'd be disappointed, but it'd be okay with me if they're like, hey, we're casting someone else who's of appropriate age to be Hal Jordan in his prime years. Josh Brolin is not it. Ryan Reynolds right now is not it.
No.
That would also be a poor casting choice. Ryan Reynolds, the right casting choice at the time for his age, for his career arc, yes. Now, no.
And don't get it twisted. Brolin would be lovely for the DC universe. I honestly would love him as Jason Blood and Etrigan the Demon. That would be a role that would be perfect for him because it's the gruff, no nonsense kind of a thing.
Yep.
Deep voice. That would be perfect for him. And he's got the experience with the CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Not Green Lantern. Not Hal Jordan. It doesn't make sense. You know what? Abin Sur even makes sense. If you want, like, him to have more of a presence than rather just a one-off and then he dies. You know what I mean?
Like the wrong body type, but Sinestro, like, just from a tenor of character, like the tones, like, okay. He's the totally wrong body type, so I'm not advocating.
Atrocitus.
There you go.
Would be good.
Yep.
If you're going to go for the Lantern route.
Make him a Red Lantern. Yeah.
But Hal?
No. Oh. No. So hopefully this is one of those rumors that lives up to the name of rumor and never comes to fruition because I don't see a positive path here. This would just be a true thing and a miss. So, all right. Let's move on. Let's get into much better things. Another classic JP and the Beans top 5. Today we are listing off our top 5, what we believe to be the best opening scenes in comic book movies. Miles, Mr. Beans, you go first. You're number 5, sir.
I feel like we haven't talked about this movie a lot on this podcast. Okay. I have Infinity War's intro where Thanos takes Thor's ship and absolutely wreaks havoc to the point the Hulk never shows up again.
Pretty good.
And it is the perfect tone setter for a villain of that caliber.
Yep.
Thanos coming in, and literally the funniest part is it comes right off of Thor 3. They all just got done watching their own planet. They're like, oh, we made it out.
We'll rebuild
by the skin of our teeth. And then immediately after, Thanos is like, nah, you're all gonna die.
There's still too many of you. Let's take another half away, please. Thank you.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Loki, and kills Loki immediately. You're like, oh. So, and yeah, Hulk gets annihilated. Not even close. So that's my number 5.
Great tone
Infinity
setter.
War.
Yeah, great tone setter for the character. I absolutely love that. My number 5, kind of a fun one here. All right. The Lego Batman movie. The opening scene of this movie is a friggin' delight. You want to talk about a tone setter? Welcome to the Lego Batman movie. It's got the jokes, it's got the Joker, and it has the best Batman song ever. Thank you, Will Arnett. Thank you for whoever put that one together. The lyrics for that song are absolutely incredible and iconic. And it's got Lego Batman kicking the butts of all of the villains. It's fantastic. That's my number 5, the Lego Batman movie.
Still haven't seen it. I still haven't seen it.
You know what? What an opportunity this fall is for you. There's not a lot of good movies to go see. You can watch Gladiator. You can watch the Lego Batman movie from home. Okay, there's some gifts for you. All right. My number 4. I'm going to stick kind of in the Avengers theme. My number 4 is Endgame. All right. You dropped the Infinity War. Great opening scene. There is no doubt. Endgame, much more quiet of an opening scene relative to Infinity War, but no less powerful, in my opinion, where you see our dear sweet Hawkeye on the home front with his family, living with the ankle bracelet on, teaching his kids how to shoot, and all of a sudden, off screen, they disappear. The effect of the snap is seen and felt so sincerely in face of Clint Barton, in his voice as he's panicking, wondering where on earth did my wife and kids just go? And it was such a phenomenal view of this is what the snap felt like, right on the ground level. And we obviously saw at the end of Infinity War as far as how the heroes felt it, but it was such a powerful scene in the sense of this is what it felt like for everybody else. Right, it's one thing to see, like we're used to seeing to a certain extent heroes and villains die, but your average ordinary person, which I understand Hawkeye is not, that is what that scene did, is it said this is what it was like for everybody else. And it allowed the rest of that movie. It was such an effective tie-in from, remember what happened in Infinity War? And such an effective handoff to the start of and the rest of the first half in particular, Endgame. Where the Avengers are just having to sit in their failure. It was really well done. That's my number 4, Endgame.
My number 4, we've talked about this for character intros. It's X2. Nightcrawler.
Yep.
Attack on the White House. Yep. Especially from if you go in there as a comic book fan watching this, you're like, oh, why is Nightcrawler doing this? But it just sets the tone because for the whole movie.
Yep.
Because then they're like, oh, this is why we need to be scared of mutants. This is why mutants are bad. And so, yeah, it's just badass.
It's a great
That's
scene.
my number 2. Or not my number 4, sorry.
It aged so well.
Yeah. It's the whole time.
Since that movie came out, and it still looks fantastic.
It's the most badass Nightcrawler scene we've had, which is a shame.
Also, yes, kind of sad.
So
that's a great number 4.
That's number 4. Number 3, The Dark Knight. The Joker attacking the bank. You don't know which one the Joker is. In fact, you don't even know if the Joker's in there. You kind of think because, the trailers. But if you didn't see the trailers, and you're like, oh, what's going on? And it's just the perfect execution of the Joker as a character and the chaos that he's just there for because, he pretty much just slowly, everybody's turning on each other. And of course, he's the winner because he just knows that that's what's going to happen. So...
the master puppeteer.
Yes, the mask reveal when he takes it off and it's him. You're like, oh dang. This sets the tone for the entire movie.
Yeah.
So Dark Knight is my number 3.
Great number 3. My number 3, also X-Men 2. Nightcrawler scene, as you stated so well, it's about as good as it gets. So I won't rehash, but it's phenomenal. So that's my number 3 is X2. My number 2 is Captain America: Winter Soldier. I remember very distinctly being in the theater watching that movie and having come off of Captain America: The First Avenger and then the Avengers movie. Listen, Cap wasn't a powerhouse at this point. He just wasn't. He, frankly, was the guy we were like, is he still alive? Like, he's kind of lucky to be here with Iron Man and Thor and Hulk. And then the start of this movie leveled him up so significantly, but not artificially. It did it organically. It's like, oh, here's what he is. Here's what he can be. An extraordinarily skilled fighter. Strong as all get out. Like, especially when it comes to, okay, Captain America versus Mortal Man. Yeah, Cap wins. And it's not close. He's just beating fools down, but he's doing so with necessary skill, silence, right? Covertly. It was such a banger of an opening scene. The ways in which he utilized his shield was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, there was better shield usage in terms of weapon in that opening scene than anything we saw in the entire Avengers movie. And I love the Avengers movie, but this opening scene let Cap flex, and my guy didn't stop flexing from the start to the end of the movie, but just a brilliant tone setter and in some ways resetting of the character. So absolutely love that. That's my number 2, Captain America: Winter Soldier.
My number 2 is Deadpool.
Ooh, good one.
That's my number 2.
Yeah.
With him just sitting on the bridge, drawing exactly what's going to happen. Troop is playing.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you just watch him just drop into the car, kill a bunch of people. And you have no idea why he's doing any of it at this time. Yep. And he's just quipping left and right. Like, it's perfect. And you're just like, we've made it, boys. We're here.
And we've not just made it, we've made it right.
Yeah. It was so great.
That's great.
So that's my number 2.
I love it.
My number 1 is recent. Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's a great pull.
The in-sync pull. And by the way, one of the most creative fight scenes ever with Deadpool killing people with Wolverine's bones is incredible.
Yep.
Incredibly creative.
Yep.
And it's just, like, I cannot give that enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he puts on the Wolverine claws himself and uses them, insane usage. Okay, it's brilliant. Like, I can't.
It's a comedy because he goes into it like, I'm gonna bring Wolverine back. He's not dead. He's got the healing factor. You morons. To the bottom of the grave. Oh.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It is perfect. And then playing to In Sync. By the way, we talked about this before. I need to bring it back. Deadpool has figured out music.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The way that they just incorporate every song, it fits so perfectly in every scene.
Right.
All 3 movies across.
Right.
All 3 movies.
Right. There is no doubt.
They made Like a Prayer mainstream again. It still plays on videos. And that was July.
And that was the 80s also.
Correct.
Came out. So, hello.
They turned it into a Billboard chart, like top, like it hit the top of the charts again.
Incredible. Oh, it's absolutely incredible.
That is my number 1, Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's so awesome. Usually when we put these top 5 together, or top 5s together, you're the one that's going, oh, I forgot about that movie. I forgot about Deadpool and Wolverine when I was putting my list together.
Tough.
Right?
Sucks to be you.
Right? As we're going, before you said that was your number 1, I went, oh, yeah.
It's perfect.
I have no excuses. It is. It's a phenomenal opening scene. Should be on everybody's top 5, except for mine for some bit reason. My number 1 was your number 3, The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. It's, for all the reasons you stated, just a glorious opening scene, introduction of the character of the Joker. And it's just this perfect blend of the visuals are tremendous, the unknown of what's happening. Who are these people behind the masks? Who's the puppeteer here pulling the strings? And the music as it crescendos as the Joker pulls the mask off and says, Ranger. It's like, whoa. And the fact that you have plenty of, if not all of the henchmen die, and then he sticks the grenade in the mouth of William Fichtner, who somehow gets a freaking cameo in this movie. But he doesn't kill him. It's just a smoke grenade. It's everything that's perfect about that character rolled up into one scene and just presented. And that's a movie that doesn't quit. Like for 2.5 hours, you are on a ride. And that scene got it off to the start. So there you go. There's my number one. What a great top 5.
It was.
What a great top 5.
Good work on you.
Well done, everybody. Great job. Mr. Beans, is there anything else you want to hit on before we send the good people on their way?
There's not.
Let's do it.
On that note,
Wrap it up.
Yeah. Godspeed.
Peace.